Hey everyone, this is Joshua Kirk here with you once again. Now it's time for episode 186 of Album of the Day, in which for today's album review, I'm going to be talking about a California-based jazz bassist and singer-songwriter and producer who lately has been definitely turning from cult following into one of the most well-respected new jazz and funk bassists right now, thanks to his work on Kendrick Lamar's highly successful 2015 record, "To Pimp a Butterfly," which received widespread acclaim and #1 spots on several year-end lists for 2015, where Thundercat played a pretty big role in the production on that LP, alongside Flying Lotus and Soundwave and a few others. So, of course, you know who I'm talking about. The bassist and singer-songwriter known as Thundercat, aka Stephen Bruner. So I'm here to review his latest album, which dropped on February the 24th of 2017, last year. And the album is called Drunk. And as you can see, this is my CD copy of the album right here. Coincidence, I'm actually reviewing this. I'm reviewing a February 2017 record in February 2018. How cool is that? About a weekend apart. But yeah, definitely a great record. It didn't make it onto my year-end list, but I still nonetheless would really give this a recommendation for sure. Anyway, this is what the CD packaging looks like. There's 23 tracks on it, but it's over 51 minutes, so that means there's a lot of really short songs on here, so this is a record highly recommended listening to as a whole. And a lot of critics did put this on their year-end list of the year, including Consequence of Sound, Pitchfork, Mojo, you name it. And this is on Flying Lotus's Brainfeeder label, and of course Flying Lotus handles most of the production here on this LP. There's some really cool artwork on this album. And these are liner notes. There's no lyrics or anything like that. And this album was actually released in a big 6-7 inch box set that I've seen at quite a few record stores that I visited in 2017. There's the disc. And this is Brainfeeder CD 64. And of course that's the CD packaging for Thundercat's Drunk. Now this album has a bit of a circular effect going on with the opening track, Rabbit Hole, and the closing track, DUI, featuring both the same melody. With Rabbit Hole, we with Rabbit Hole, it sort of sees the narrator of the album deciding to go hard, get drunk, and travel down a rabbit hole in which we descend into the first actual song on the record, the hilarious Captain Stupido, which features a crazy bass line, some cool soulful guitar playing, and of course some lyrics with these catchy little mantras, like the narrator feels weird, but then there are these voices telling him, comb your beard, brush your teeth, beat your meat, go to sleep. This song is just hilarious. And then he makes the hilarious realization that he left his wallet at the club. And it's so funny how at the ending of the song, the mantras are, vividly depicted through a sound of him snoring as well as a fart sound, and him going once again, I think I left a wallet at the club. club. And then after that, we get into a furious bass-driven instrumental with which which features some incredible bass playing on there, some some kind of off the wall piano playing on the track too, as well as a kind of as well as like a skittering, like nervous beat in the back, beat backing up the song, as well as Thundercat's beautiful, soulful vocals. Vocals like those first few moments on the record are just like incredibly strong, I would say, along with the fourth track on the record, Bus in These Streets, which is the first single to be released off of the LP, and it's sort of a lyric sort of taking an introspective look at like, texting on your phone and like, doing all the things that you would do daily on your phone. And he says some really smart things on this track, like, thank God for technology, because where would we be if we couldn't tweet our thoughts? Thoughts and thoughts. And he's sort of stuck in the clouds, and then he sort of gets a little worried that he left his phone in kind of a misplaced location, but then sort of realizing that it's okay to disconnect sometimes, and sometimes we all can get a little kind of devoured by our phones a little bit. And I do really like the kind of spacey 80s new wave inspired instrumental on the track. With the kind of watery keyboards and funky bass line. Then after this, we get the song A Fan's Mail Suite, Tron Song 2, which is a sequel to his song Tron Song, which is about Stephen Bruner's cat named Tron. And this is sort of a song about like sort of wondering what it would be like to be a cat. And started talking about how, if he had 9 lives, he would just sit in the sun, let the rays wash over him, and just do what he want, and also like he would scare off any little tiny object with a powerful roar. Like, it's just so funny and absurd, and I love it because it could sort of be thought of as kind of like a metaphor almost, while also sort of talking about his cat Tron a little bit. And love the bass line on here, as well as the really cool beat that Soundwave produces on here, with the sound effects of like somebody yelling in the background. Sounds really nicely programmed on there. And then after this, we have one of my favorite tracks on the record, the gorgeous Lava Lamp. I mean, right off the bat, the harmonies just like pull me in on this track. And this song is sort of a rumination of like death, and it's pretty much the first song on the record, like dealing with death, and it really addresses it in definitely a very sort of smart, if kind of dark, kind of blunt sort of way, but also trying to look at death as sort of kind of a positive feeling of just free falling away. And love the production on this track, the gorgeous odyssey of keyboards on the track, and the bass line gives it a plenty nice groove along with the beat that once again is produced by Soundwave. But then after a more kind of dark, sort of melancholy outlook on death, we have Jethro that takes a look at death in a more absurd, kind of optimistic sort of way, which is pretty funny about the track, and I do love the groove that goes over it, even though I do wish it was maybe a little bit longer. It does kind of end abruptly a little bit. Along with the following interlude, Day and Night, even though I do think that groove that he produces there with that little transitional tune does sound pretty nice. And the lead single off of the record follows, which is the song Show You the Way, which is by far one of the most surprising moments on the entire LP, as featured on the track are two rock legends, Kenny Loggins and Michael McDonald, formerly from the Doobie Brothers. But let me say, I was surprised how well this collaboration worked here on this song. I mean, Stephen Bruner, Kenny, and Michael really do have a lot of chemistry and uniqueness with the way their voices blend together on this track. It has a catchy hook on the song, and I just can't help but belt out my alto voice every time it comes on. So, show you the way. It's so catchy. It's so catchy, and also great lyrics. And I love how well Kenny Loggins' voice has aged, as you can pretty much see on the song. Those kind of sweet, sort of honey-like tones are pretty much still intact, even as he's growing up and reaching like his 70s. And then we have Michael McDonald, who delivers a very soulful performance here on this track, and also provides the kind of 70s inspired keyboard work on the song. On the song too, and sort of kind of trying to address love, and sort of trying to find love even in times of darkness, pretty much. Hence the line of on the edge of dark there's the brightest light. It's a great track. And then we have Walk On By featuring Kendrick Lamar, where it features just a lone bass line and an electronic beat, sort of addressing the troubles in a relationship, pretty much, while Kendrick's verse on the track, his awesome verse on the track, sort of addresses the wrongs he's trying to right, which go beautifully over Thundercat's more kind of blunt sort of outlook on sort of this argument that he seems to be having with his significant other. Definitely a cool track. And then we have the song Black, which features the word black with 3 Ks, which stands for like Ku Klux Klan, which makes sense because the song lyrically does deal with death over a pretty awesome wacky instrumental on the track. And sort of bringing a self-awareness to death once again, which of course is done really nicely on Lava Lamp and Jethro. But then right after that, Thundercat goes down a rabbit hole of hilarity with songs such as Tokyo, which is a song sort of talking about all the different things you can do in Tokyo, like eating fish, or spending your or blowing your cash on anime or pachinko machines, as well as a Dragon Ball Z reference, and even the infamous Suicide Forest, with the hilarious sort of yell quotation after that of shit, sort of addressing the character's sense of regret of going out to this forest where a lot of people unfortunately commit suicide in. commit suicide in. But at the same time, the song is just so funny. Like the Dragon Ball Z reference in the line of getting a toy from the dentist, sort of starting this whole thing of like possibly being drunk in Tokyo and wanting to do all this crazy stuff. Stuff, it's just so clever, and it definitely shows Thundercat's sort of sense of like wacky, just like off the wall humor really nicely. The track Jamil Space Ride, which is named after his brother Jamil, sort of sees this character who's like not feeling safe in his area about this black person who doesn't feel safe in his hometown because the cops are always going after him. But he decides that, instead of just suffering, he wants to go in space with a bunch of aliens and space cats and stuff like that. And it's just so, like, hilarious and absurd, and it's definitely a song that, while it is incredibly short, it definitely is enough to sort of leave an impact on you and sort of make you chuckle a little inside. Friend Zone, which is another one of the lead singles here on this record. Friend Zone, which is another one of the lead singles here on this LP, is like a song that just has a crazy groove, like one of the best like funky grooves on the entire album. Thundercat going nuts on the bass and putting it through a psychedelic effects pedal, which just sounds really cool on there. And the lyrics are really funny, sort of about how he doesn't want, to be with this person who's like not treating him right, and he feels fine just doing other stuff, including like this is one of the only songs I've ever heard where somebody references Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat and stuff like that. And there are definitely some hilarious other lines on here, like the line of, "If you're not bringing tacos, I suggest you start to walk away," as well as making a reference to Kendrick Lamar's song, "Don't Kill My Vibe." My vibe. The song then Changes follows, which is a song originally featured on an EP of his. Originally featured on an EP of his in 2015 that eventually got featured here on this record, and it fits just so well on the album. And the song is just it really kicks some ass with that amazing bass line that you just can't get out of your head, and the lyrics sort of see like this character who's like really like strong enough to like stand up for himself in times of darkness and stuff like that, because even though he feels like beat down by like racism and all this stuff, he's still like able to stand up for himself, even though he still at the same time feels kind of broken and is sitting here with a black hole in his chest. And I love the instrumentation on here. The beat keeps some good time with the bass line. The piano sounds really nice, and Kamasi Washington comes through with some super beautiful sax stylings on the track too. It's one song that really does show off Thundercat and Flying Lotus's like production skills. Where I'm Going sort of sees him sort of excuse me. Where I'm Going is sort of the song where Thundercat really sees himself going down kind of a rabbit hole of intoxication and stuff like that, but still at the same time feeling okay with it and feeling sort of relaxed, even though he's been drinking a lot this whole time, sort of causing all these different ruminations and whatnot. And really cool bass line, even though I wish it didn't really even though I wish it didn't fade out the way it did. It kind of fades out a little too soon for me. Uh, and yet another really surprising collaboration on the album comes after the song Drink That featuring Wiz Khalifa. Uh, so Khalifa. And I really like the song, and I think it really does it does a good job of defining the odd feelings that Bruner is having while he's drunk. And it does a good job of really defining the odd feelings that Bruner is having while he's drunk, sort of depicting these two guys at a party, drinking, smoking weed, and doing all this stuff, but sort of being pressured on by a girl to keep going in outer space with them by taking all these substances and whatnot and keep partying. And I don't usually like Wiz Khalifa, but his verse on here sounds pretty great in my opinion, and it really does really add to the sort of titular drunkenness, I think, really well. I mean, he is sort of talking about enjoying all this partying and stuff, but being self-aware and also sort of, worrying that he's not going to be able to, get out of his sort of hallucination spiral that he's gone into. And also, the production on here sounds really nice. It's got kind of a sort of modern gaudiness to it, but at the same time, it sounds really nice and crazy with the sort of wailing keyboards. With the wailing keyboards that sort of pop in and out of the song, played by Taylor Graves. Graves. The song Inferno is a song that really is probably the most psychedelic song on the record. Not really musically, but more kind of atmospherically and lyrically. He's having hallucinations of black clouds filled with smoke and darker horizons ahead, sort of surrounding him. And the production on here just sounds so crazy. The kind of pitch shifted, demonic sort of voice in his head that's being depicted, as well as the off-kilter strings and keyboard sounds. And the song closes out with a really just killer bass improv. Killer bass improv. And it's definitely a song that I think most vividly depicts the drunken hallucinations really nicely. And then once he comes down from it, he comes through a stream of really short songs that eventually close out the album. I Am Crazy being over 25 seconds. And then 3 a.m., which sort of sounds like Elliott Smith, except depicted through a bass line and keyboards instead of quiet acoustic guitar and whispery, quiet voice. And then we have the title track. Sort of talking about how he's tired of all this drunkenness and just wants to come down from it because nothing seems real to him anymore. And production on here does sound really cool. Cool here. I like the kind of pitch shifted vocal loops. I thought sounded punctuated in the song really nicely. We have the song The Turn Down, which has a little bit of a Caribbean vibe to it, and it's like the most political song on the album, sort of addressing the Black Lives Matter movement and stuff like that. Matter movement and stuff like that. And it actually features a guest verse on the second half from Pharrell, which actually does sound really nice. And he comes through with a very kind of peppy performance on the track, which I do really like, and it really does fit in with sort of the Caribbean flavor of the track. And then, of course, closes out with a DUI, which, like I said, goes for the whole circular effect as it uses the same melody from the opening track, and sort of goes back and sort of addresses all this journey that we went through of death and drunkenness and stuff like that, and stuff like that. So it makes sense that the final line in the first verse would be, hopefully you won't get caught and get a DUI. As well as sort of addressing how friends sort of come and go, themes addressed in songs like Walk On By and like Friend Zone a little bit, and using the line, I'm so tired, from the song Lava Lamp. And then, of course, closing with one more glass to go. Where this ends, we'll never know. No, and the production sounds really beautiful on here. Like the very, like the very kind of bright, sort of blooming keyboards, and some strings on the song that sound really nice. And I thought that little bit of kind of like fuzzy distortion that occurs at the end of the song did end the album in sort of a funny, if a little abrupt sort of way. So yeah, overall, I definitely really dig this album. The grooves, the lyrics, sort of the conceptuality of it. And the guest features were actually all really surprising. I mean, I don't remember the last time I heard an album that featured Kenny Loggins and Wiz Khalifa on the same record. So Thundercat really did bring a lot of surprises here, and still making all of them work. So yeah, I'm definitely feeling a strong 8 out of 10 for this latest Thundercat album, Drunk. And I definitely had really been getting into Thundercat through this album in 2017, and can't wait to hear whatever he does next, because he's like kind of a constantly ship-shifting artist. Anyway, that's my review of Thundercat's latest album, Drunk, and I'll see you for episode 187.